America. It's more than just a place on a map, it's an idea, a promise, a bold experiment in self-governance where everyday people have a say in their own destiny. But somewhere along the way, that promise started to feel shaky. Our political system, once a source of pride, feels bogged down by division and gridlock. The economy, the engine of our dreams, sputters with uncertainty. Headlines scream about inflation, political battles, and global turmoil. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to tune it all out. America is at a crossroads. The path we choose now will determine the course of our nation for generations to come. We can't afford to wait for someone else to fix this. Not the politicians, not the pundits, not some magical savior. We, the people, are the ones we've been waiting for. The problems we face, from a shaky economy to a fractured political landscape, won't magically disappear. They demand our attention, our engagement, our action. Ignoring them won't make them go away, it'll only make them worse. This isn't about doom and gloom, it's about a wake-up call. The power to make our voices heard, to demand better from our leaders, to hold them accountable. The time for action is now. Every day, we're bombarded with a dizzying array of information. Headlines scream about the latest crisis, the newest outrage, the political football of the week. But we need to cut through the clutter, to look beyond the surface and understand the forces shaping our world. We need to move past the partisan shouting matches and engage in honest, productive conversations about the challenges we face. It's about asking questions, demanding clarity, and thinking critically. It's time to become informed citizens, not passive consumers of news. Let's dig deeper, understand the issues, and engage in meaningful dialogue about the future we want to create. The future of our nation isn't preordained. It's not a foregone conclusion written in some distant boardroom or political backroom deal. The future of America is written every single day by the choices we make. This isn't about returning to some mythical golden age. It's about forging a new path forward, one grounded in common sense, shared values, and a belief in the promise of America. It's about demanding better from our leaders, holding them accountable, and participating in the process of self-governance. We the people have the power to demand change, to chart a new course, to reclaim the promise of America for ourselves and for generations to come. The choice is ours. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the economy. It's the air we breathe, even if we don't always think about it. Right now, that air feels a little thin. Inflation is a word we hear a lot these days. It's the reason that gallon of milk costs more, why filling up your gas tank feels like a gut punch. We're all feeling the pinch, wondering if our paychecks can keep up with the rising tide of prices. And then there's the job market. Headlines might tout record low unemployment, but how many of us know someone struggling to find a job that pays a living wage? We need to understand what's driving these economic trends, how they impact our daily lives, and what we can do to create a more stable and prosperous future. It's no secret that America feels divided. Turn on the news, scroll through social media, and you'll be bombarded with a constant barrage of political battles, partisan bickering, and ideological warfare. Elections, once a time for civic engagement and thoughtful debate, have become high-stakes battles, fueled by money, misinformation, and a healthy dose of mudslinging. Policy decisions, from healthcare to education to climate change, are often held hostage to political gridlock, with each side digging in their heels. The result? Stalemate, inaction, and a growing sense of frustration among everyday Americans. But we can't afford to give up on the idea of a functioning democracy, where people with different views can come together, find common ground, and work towards solutions. It's not just domestic issues that are shaping our present and future. We live in an increasingly interconnected world, a global village where events on the other side of the planet can ripple outwards, impacting everything from the price of gas to the stability of our nation. Geopolitical tensions simmer and boil, threatening to erupt into conflict at any moment. The rise of authoritarianism, the erosion of democratic norms, and the spread of misinformation pose serious threats to the liberal world order that America has championed for decades. Will we retreat from our global leadership role, or will we rise to meet the challenges of an increasingly complex and dangerous world? In this age of information overload, it's more important than ever to be discerning consumers of news and information. We're constantly bombarded with a cacophony of voices, each vying for our attention, each pushing their own agenda. The 24-hour news cycle thrives on conflict and controversy, often sacrificing nuance and accuracy for the sake of a catchy headline or a viral soundbite. Social media algorithms feed us a steady diet of content designed to confirm our existing biases, creating echo chambers where critical thinking goes to die. We need to be critical thinkers, to question everything, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to demand better from our media and from ourselves. Dig deeper, ask questions, and be wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers. So, where do we go from here? It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the challenges we face. Economic uncertainty, political division, global instability, it's enough to make anyone want to crawl under the covers and hide. But here's the thing, we're not alone in this. Millions of Americans are grappling with the same anxieties, the same frustrations, the same desire for a better future. We may not agree on everything, and that's okay. In a diverse and vibrant democracy, there will always be differences of opinion. But we need to find a way to move beyond the partisan bickering, the ideological silos, the us versus them mentality that has come to define our political discourse. Let's talk about something we all understand. The price of a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, filling up your gas tank. We've all felt it. The pinch in our wallets, the frustration at the checkout counter, the sense that things just cost more than they used to. That's inflation, plain and simple. It's the reason that summer vacation might be a staycation this year, why that new appliance purchase gets put on hold. Inflation erodes our purchasing power, making it harder to make ends meet, to save for the future, to achieve the American dream. It hits hardest those who can least afford it. Seniors on fixed incomes, working families struggling to keep up, young people just starting out. We need leaders who understand the real-world impact of inflation on everyday Americans, who will prioritize policies that promote stable prices, and who will work to create an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. Imagine putting all your purchases on a credit card, month after month, year after year, without ever paying it off. Sounds like a recipe for disaster, right? Well, that's essentially what our country has been doing for decades, racking up trillions of dollars in debt. Now, some debt can be a good thing. It can help finance investments in infrastructure, education, and research that can pay off in the long run. But when debt spirals out of control, it becomes a drag on economic growth, a burden on future generations, and a threat to our national security. Every dollar we spend on interest payments is a dollar that can't be invested in priorities like education, healthcare, or research and development. We need leaders who understand the importance of fiscal responsibility, who are willing to make tough choices today to ensure a brighter tomorrow. Tariffs. They sound like something out of a history book, like something our grandparents dealt with. But the truth is, tariffs, those taxes on imported goods, are alive and well, and they're hitting American businesses and consumers right in the pocketbook. Now, some argue that tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. But the reality is far more complicated. Tariffs often lead to higher prices for consumers, retaliatory tariffs from other countries, and harm to American businesses that rely on imported goods. We need trade policies that are based on sound economics, not political grandstanding. So, what's the answer? How do we navigate these choppy economic waters and chart a course for a more stable and prosperous future? It starts with common sense economics, with policies that promote growth, opportunity, and fiscal responsibility. We need a tax code that is fair, simple, and promotes investment and job creation. A regulatory environment that protects consumers and the environment without stifling innovation or burdening small businesses with red tape. And we need to get serious about tackling our national debt, making tough choices today to ensure a brighter tomorrow. This isn't about left versus right, it's about right versus wrong. It's about creating an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. It's become a national pastime, this sport of picking sides, red versus blue, liberal versus conservative, rural versus urban. We draw lines in the sand, retreat to our respective corners, and launch verbal grenades at the other side. Social media has become an amplifier, a breeding ground for outrage and echo chambers where dissenting opinions are met with swift and merciless condemnation. We've forgotten what it means to have a civil conversation, to disagree without being disagreeable. This toxic polarization paralyzes our ability to address the very real challenges facing our nation, from climate change to economic inequality to healthcare costs. It's time to drop the rope, to step back from the brink, and to remember that we're all on the same team. It's easy to despair in the face of such deep divisions, to throw up our hands and say, we're too far gone, there's no coming back from this. But to give in to cynicism is to surrender to the very forces that seek to divide us. We must remember that America has faced dark times before, times when our divisions seemed insurmountable, our future uncertain. And yet, we persevered. We found common ground. We rebuilt. There are countless examples throughout our history of Americans setting aside their differences to work towards a common goal. Think of the bipartisan effort to pass the Civil Rights Act, the creation of Social Security, the mobilization for World War II. These weren't moments of perfect unity, but they were moments of shared purpose, of recognizing that some challenges are simply too big, too important, to be held hostage to partisan politics. We need that same spirit today, a willingness to reach across the aisle, to listen to different perspectives, to find common ground where we can, and to compromise when necessary. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward. Let's be clear, unity doesn't mean uniformity. We don't all have to agree on everything. In fact, disagreement, when approached constructively, can be the engine of progress, a catalyst for innovation and change. It's in the clash of ideas, the challenging of assumptions, that we often find the best solutions. The key is to foster a culture of respectful disagreement, where we can engage in robust debate without resorting to personal attacks or demonization, where we can challenge ideas without demonizing the people who hold them, where we can agree to disagree without letting those disagreements define us or tear us apart. This requires a conscious effort, a commitment to civility and mutual respect. It means listening to understand, not just to respond. It means being willing to acknowledge the validity of opposing viewpoints, even if we ultimately disagree. And it means remembering that at the end of the day, we're all Americans, sharing this journey together. Let's not confuse unity with uniformity. America's strength lies in its diversity, in the tapestry of experiences, perspectives, and beliefs that make up our nation. We don't need to agree on everything to recognize our shared humanity, our common ground as Americans. Unity doesn't require us to abandon our values or beliefs, but to find ways to bridge the divides that separate us. It means focusing on the things that unite us, our love for our families, our desire for a better future, our belief in the promise of America. It's time to reject the politics of division, the zero-sum game that tells us our gain must come at someone else's expense. Let's embrace the idea that we're all in this together, that our fates are intertwined, and that by working together, we can create a stronger, more prosperous, and more united nation for ourselves and for generations to come. The decisions we make today will reverberate for generations to come. It's easy to get caught up in the immediacy of the news cycle. But we must also lift our gaze and ask ourselves, what kind of America are we building for our children and grandchildren? Investing in our future means embracing innovation and supporting the industries that will drive progress. This isn't about picking winners and losers, but about creating an environment where American ingenuity can flourish. We need to invest in infrastructure and clean energy technologies for economic opportunities. Investing in our future also means investing in our workforce, ensuring all Americans have the skills they need. Education has always been the cornerstone of the American dream, the pathway to opportunity and upward mobility. But somewhere along the way, that pathway has become riddled with potholes and detours. Too many of our schools are failing to prepare students for the demands of the 21st century workforce, leaving them ill-equipped to compete in a global economy. We need to rethink education from the ground up, starting with early childhood education. Investing in early childhood programs pays dividends for years to come, boosting graduation rates, increasing earning potential, and reducing the need for costly social interventions later in life. We need to empower teachers, providing them with the resources and support they need to do their jobs effectively. We need to ensure that all students, regardless of zip code, have access to a quality education, whether it's in a traditional public school, a charter school, or a private school. And we need to make college more affordable and accessible, reducing the burden of student loan debt that is crushing a generation of young Americans. This means exploring innovative solutions like income-based repayment plans, tuition-free community college, and expanding Pell Grant eligibility. Section 3. Fiscal Responsibility. A Legacy for Generations. Imagine inheriting a house from your grandparents, a house with a leaky roof, crumbling foundation, and a mountain of unpaid bills. That's essentially the legacy we're leaving for future generations if we don't get serious about fiscal responsibility. For decades, our nation has been living beyond its means, racking up trillions of dollars in debt that threatens our economic future and our national security. Every dollar we spend on interest payments is a dollar that can't be invested in education, infrastructure, or research and development. Fiscal responsibility isn't about austerity, it's about making smart choices, prioritizing investments that will yield long-term returns, and ensuring that we're not saddling our children and grandchildren with a mountain of debt. This requires tough choices, a willingness to make sacrifices today for the sake of a better tomorrow. It requires leaders who are willing to level with the American people about the challenges we face, who will put the long-term health of our nation ahead of short-term political gain. Section 4. The Power of Long-Term Vision. In an era of instant gratification, 24-hour news cycles, and short-term political calculations, it's tempting to focus on the immediate, the urgent, the here and now, but we must resist that temptation. True leadership requires a long-term vision, a willingness to look beyond the next election cycle, the next quarterly earnings report, the next tweet. It requires a commitment to principles, not just polls, a belief in the power of ideas to shape a better future. We need leaders who can articulate a clear vision for America's future, who can inspire us to work towards a common goal, and who have the courage to make the tough choices necessary to get us there. This is our challenge, our opportunity, our responsibility as citizens of this great nation. Let us rise to the occasion, embrace the power of long-term vision, and work together to build an America that is worthy of our highest aspirations. Section 1. A Call to Action. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From the price of milk to the perils of political polarization, from the weight of national debt to the necessity of long-term vision. It's enough to make your head spin, to leave you feeling overwhelmed, maybe even a little hopeless. But here's the thing. Understanding the challenges is the first step towards solving them. And the good news is, we the people still hold the keys to our own destiny. This isn't a spectator sport. This is our democracy, our economy, our future. And it's up to each and every one of us to get off the sidelines and into the game. That doesn't mean you have to run for office or become a policy wonk. It starts with small acts of citizenship, staying informed, engaging in thoughtful dialogue, holding our elected officials accountable. Vote in every election, from local school board races to presidential elections. Make your voice heard, contact your representatives, let them know what matters to you. Support organizations that are fighting for the future you believe in, and most importantly, talk to each other. Break out of your echo chambers, engage with people who hold different views, and remember that we're all in this together. Section 2. Our shared destiny. The challenges we face are real but not insurmountable. America has always been a nation of strivers and innovators. We confront challenges with grit and determination. This is our moment to bridge divides and forge a new path. The future is a team effort, and we're all on the same team. The choice is ours. The time is now. Let's get to work.